We are here with Richard Donovan. He works in Experian, and we're going to ask him a couple of questions for the exhibition. What is the most impactful change you've seen in your field, and what made it successful?
From a broader sustainability perspective, the way that we think about it is not just purely about environment. It's about the whole ecosystem. I'm particularly focused on the social impact that we can have, and you know, it's true to say that often when environmental disasters occur, it's often those people from the poorest backgrounds, from ethnic minorities in those areas, who suffer the most. And so I don't think you can look at one without another, and certainly that's how we approach it. So when I look at some of the challenges that we face in wider society, as a business, we're particularly focused on issues surrounding financial health, and whether that's financial inclusion, poverty, improving outcomes for young people. And so we've been involved in a range of projects that support that. If I pick out a couple, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been working closely with the National Literacy Trust. And they'd done a piece of research which found a really strong correlation between childhood literacy and financial literacy, and the two often go hand in hand. So they were keen to create something that would improve financial literacy and financial education. So we partnered with them for the last number of years, as I say, and created this program called Words That Count. So there is a digital element to it. So there's short, bite-sized information and guidance for young people on there. But more importantly, over the last particularly 3 years, thousands of young people have had good, sound financial education given to them by coaches and mentors that they already have relationships with in over 40 grassroots sporting organisations, boxing clubs, football clubs, cricket, rugby, you name it, based on the belief that they are more likely to have this subject matter mean something to them, to resonate with them, if it's delivered by someone that they already have a relationship with, rather than, oh, here's a financial education lesson in school. And certainly the results have proven that over 90% of those young people have said that their financial confidence has improved as a result of going through those 6 money management modules.
What is a common misconception people have about sustainability or your work?
I think a lot of people look at sustainability with a small s, i.e. assume that it's all about environment and look at it as a singular topic. And I think you have to look at the whole piece, the whole donut, as Kate Raworth would say, the author of Donut Economics. You've got to look at all the pressures that you put on the ecosystem, on the society in which you live in, to make sure that from a systems thinking point of view, you're not focusing on a singular issue and not realising that it's causing further problems down the chain somewhere else. And so I guess from a misconception point of view, the assumption that you can fix a singular thing and without concentrating on everything else that could go with it is a real issue.
What initially inspired you to get involved in sustainability?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd love to say that it was a life calling, and in reality, it was a bit of an accident. So my original foray into this space was taking on our community investment function here at Experian on top of my existing day job when a peer of mine went on maternity leave. She asked me to kind of look after them, and then as she came back, she never took them back. So that was my first kind of interaction. What I realised was that I love solving problems. I love making connections where things might not normally connect, and thinking creatively to kind of solve some of those challenges. And what I realised was that, of course, the causes that need most help are big problems that need solving, but also some of the systems and the ways in which things were happening were inefficient and didn't work. So I'm fortunate enough here in Nottingham to chair a thing called Thinking Differently, the challenge board for that. And what I love about it is that it's taking away one-to-one relationships between funders and delivery partners. And when I say funders, that could be charity funders, it could be local authorities, it could be businesses. And I get lots of charities knocking on my door and asking for funding. And when you've just got that kind of one-to-one relationship, it's a yes or a no. And unfortunately, often it's a no just because of the quantity of asks that you get and the finite resource and finite budget that you've got. Through Thinking Differently, we are trying to drive more collaboration. So can we get more delivery partners, the charity partners, for instance, working together because they're doing some really good work at a local level, but they're doing the same thing or similar things to another organisation down the road. Actually getting some of those to work together potentially takes away some of the resource at the kind of back office structures or whatever else that they've got, and therefore they can create greater impact for less overall money. But equally, from a business and a funder point of view, rather than it just being, can Experian give some money to do this? It's, can we chip in a bit, and Capital One and Boots and IdeaGen and Eon and all put in a little bit to mitigate any risks of testing some of this stuff out, but also meaning that we can get involved in more projects rather than that one-to-one relationship.
What is a project or achievement you are most proud of and why?
I think the probably the most recent and valid example, which speaks to the kind of collective impact model that we've developed in Nottingham, is Nottingham Rock Call, which we I don't know how familiar you are with it, but Rock Call has been an organisation in place for 21 years, kicked off in New York. They put on a hip hop gig at one of the big venues in New York 21 years ago, and everyone who attended earned their place. They went and did 4 hours of volunteering in their local community in New York and got a free ticket to go and see this hip hop concert. That has been replicated, I think, in 70 cities, major cities across the globe, aside from New York, Tokyo, Paris, London, etc. And we brought it to Nottingham, a modest-sized city, and probably one of the smallest cities they've done Rock Core in. And we had almost 1,000 people in Rock City in early April who had, in the 3 or 4 weeks prior to the gig, given up 4 hours of their time across 15 charities in the local area, transforming community centres, transforming garden spaces, giving more green space to people in their communities, taking areas of almost dereliction and transforming them. And when you hear stories where people are saying, this is the first time I've ever put my hands in soil, or I've never volunteered before, or I've never been to Rock City before, or I've never been to a gig before, and through giving up 4 hours of their time, they're having all of these experiences, as well as meeting new people and collaborating together and feeling like they want to go and volunteer again, and then feeling that sense of achievement when they see their names and their photos on the screen at Rock City as part of a big gig with Tiny Temper and Livia and Jaya Had a Dream. It was, it was hairs on the back of the neck kind of moment. It was really cool. But the collaboration that we saw from people from around Nottingham who hadn't worked together in that format before, who just said, we want to make it happen. And we delivered it in about 3 months. From the moment we said, we'll find the money, to actually delivering it, it probably took 3 to 4 months, which is really rapid. We're now thinking about 2027, and we know we've got to give ourselves a good 12 to 18 months lead time to really make it happen.
That sounds really inspiring, especially for the younger generation, as a lot of people stereotypically say that the younger generation is much more lazier. I believe it's just more of, when you know that there's a reward, you will work for it, whereas some people just see it as pure laziness, and because of how tiring it is, and you don't know what reward you're going to get at the end, it's more of a stereotype that everyone just doesn't want to do anything. So knowing that you've gone out your way as a company to get the younger generation involved, to break that stereotype, is amazing. Are there any words of inspiration you have for the listeners?
I'm going to pick up on what you just said, because I work with a CEO when I was at City many years ago, a Dutch guy called Bert Pils, and he used to say, when you're pointing a finger at me, you're pointing 3 fingers back at yourself. And when the older generation are saying Gen Z are lazy or whatever else, you've got to step back and say, if that is true, what's created that?
Yeah.
And you as parents and adults in these young people's lives have tried to protect them so much and make sure everything's as easy as possible, and they don't build up the resilience, they don't build up the fight. And so, you've got to take your lion's share of any blame that you are pointing at young people, because you've created this. Equally, I don't buy into the fact that people are lazy as such. I think it's just about how do you present the opportunities. And we are living in a different age where people want to be entertained.
Yes.
And people want to boredom isn't a thing anymore because people don't need to be bored anymore. So you have to shift your own context and think about how do you make sure that you can talk to people and go to where people are. And it's very easy for us in business to kind of sit in our ivory towers and come up with solutions to problems that we see. But a bit like we've done with National Literacy Trust, there's no point creating financial education tools and lessons and expecting young people to just turn up. You've got to go and find out where they are and what they appreciate and what they respect. And just like we've done with the local sports clubs, if they've already got an existing relationship, almost by stealth, helping them to understand how to create a budget through the words of wisdom from a mentor that they respect. So you've got to go to where the people are if you're really going to make change happen.